Our bank strategy doesn't seem to work for you. A single-parent household's high school graduate gets sacked. Alex Miller, the newly appointed president who had recently taken over the bank, was standing in front of me. Alex declared my dismissal and threw me out of the bank with a smug smile. Alex obviously meant to cast me out like trash, even though I had a history of making no serious mistakes and even improving performance for the bank. That was the start of my conflict with Alex. David Nelson is my name. I'm a 36-year-old banker who works for a big Chicago bank. I was raised in a single-parent home after losing my father when I was a small child. I began working as soon as I graduated from high school, but now that I've gained the respect of my coworkers and managers, I'm given big projects to work on. I have had a fantastic life. I've been able to give back to my mother because of my hard work. I even take her on long holidays to a resort vacation in the United States. I had assumed that I would lead a tranquil existence, but destiny had other ideas. The general downturn in the industry may be one of the causes of this change. The same strategies that had previously been successful were failing to bring in new business, and among us bankers, rumors of a potential merger began to circulate. The previous president had been actively working hard to create new business chances, but he collapsed in the midst of it all. Thankfully, his life was spared and he was promptly located. Even though it was verified that he would require a lengthy hospital stay, I was relieved to hear the news. It was decided that a change in leadership was necessary because, even after his recovery, he would not be able to return to the front lines as previously. Alex Miller, the eldest son of the previous president, was appointed as the new president. Alex, who was in his early 40s, had been employed in the global hotel sector before. I believed he was passionate about his career because I had heard he had switched to a different industry to obtain more expertise. However, that presumption proved to be incorrect in the most detrimental way. Alex gave a ridiculous order as soon as he was elected president. He crossed his arms haughtily and glared critically at the staff as he walked into our office for the first time. With a firm, authoritative voice, he addressed the senior staff and declared, "Now that I'm in charge, we're changing the old ways to make this a place where young talent thrives. Employees under 30 are being promoted to important roles." Alex effectively pushed longtime seniors who had held important positions for more than a decade to the sidelines by demoting them. He began replacing them by elevating a succession of young, highly educated bankers to high-level positions. From now on, this bank will operate based on merit. Under the direction of the most driven young professionals, we are constructing an open institution. At first glance, Alex's argument seemed reasonable. However, my fellow bankers and I voiced our opposition. Sure, evaluating someone based on their abilities is important, but making such a drastic change all at once is too reckless. Alex had just been appointed the president and knew nothing about the inner workings of the bank or the strengths and personalities of the staff. Even if you wanted to improve the bank, this approach would never work. With that in mind, I gathered the opinions of my colleagues and decided to speak up to Alex. The senior bankers feel disrespected after having their accomplishments and skills overlooked and being pushed to the sidelines. Meanwhile, the younger staff, suddenly thrown into key positions, are overwhelmed by the gap between their responsibilities and their actual experience. David, wasn't it? You're in a managerial position as well, despite being relatively young. If you don't like my directives that much, I'll take the burden off your shoulders. Alex refused to listen to any of our concerns. In fact, he demoted me and stripped me of my title, reducing me to a regular employee. My replacement? A bright young banker who had only been with the bank for 3 years. Although talented, he was the most unsettled by this sudden promotion. No matter how smart or highly educated someone is, there's no substitute for experience. In the past, the workplace ensured senior colleagues could support newly promoted managers. But with Alex's reshuffle, there were no experienced employees left to provide guidance. The chaos didn't stop with me. Similar reshuffling happened across departments, plunging the entire workplace into disorder. Eventually, daily operations were disrupted, and even our clients began to suffer the consequences. Seeing the impact on our business partners, I decided to confront Alex again. "Alex, we can't continue our operations as usual under these conditions. Our current situation is damaging the bank's reputation with our clients." "What are you even talking about? Banks of the future shouldn't be a haven for aging employees. They should be a stage for young talent to shine. We don't need the reputation we've built up if it means holding on to the past. His response was a cold, derisive laugh. I spoke up for the sake of the bank and my colleagues, but Alex snorted in disdain at my words. You're just upset that younger employees have surpassed you in rank, aren't you? Employees like you are dead weight to the company. No matter how much I pleaded, Alex wouldn't budge from his stance. No matter how sincerely I explained, my words never got through to him. Even when I asked him to create a system where senior bankers could support the younger staff, he flatly dismissed it, saying it wasn't necessary. Finally, with a look of contempt, Alex pulled out my personnel file. All right, David. You just want your old position back. I mean, come on. A high school graduate working at a bank and even managing a team? That must have been a fluke. Could you at least look at my performance record? I've been at the top in sales, I tried to explain. But Alex waved his hand impatiently to silence me. Yeah, I get it. But as someone who graduated from an Ivy League school, I really don't get what a high school diploma holder like you has to say anyway. Just take your vacation as scheduled, David. I was worried about the bank and my colleagues. But this was the time of year when I took my mom on our annual trip to a resort holiday. Since I had already submitted my paid leave request, I reluctantly decided to take my vacation. I never imagined things would turn out like this, but at least I resolved to enjoy the trip and clear my head. I had a wonderful time showing my mom around and relaxing at the resort hotel. But when I returned home, I was greeted by an unexpected surprise. There was an envelope from my workplace. I wasn't expecting anything. Curious, I opened the envelope. Inside was a resignation letter. It was already filled out with my name and details. Only my signature was missing. Of course, I had no intention of quitting and had never asked anyone to prepare a resignation letter for me. Why did they send me a resignation form? Did they mistake me for someone else? Why was a resignation letter sent to me? Did they mistake me for someone else? I was shocked and kept asking myself. But no matter how many times I checked, my name was clearly written on it. Still bewildered, I returned to work after my vacation and immediately consulted my manager. However, my manager was just as stunned and completely confused about the resignation letter with my name on it. At that moment, Alex appeared and looked at me with a sly grin. I received a resignation letter in the mail addressed to me. Do you know anything about it, Alex? I asked. I noticed something strange. Alex wasn't even trying to hide his amusement as he watched my flustered reaction with a smug smile. At that moment, my suspicion became certainty. You must have been the one who had that resignation letter sent. Alex met my questioning gaze and grinned even more, as if enjoying the situation. Looks like you don't fit in with our bank's way of doing things, David. Single mom, high school graduate, and you're fired. The loud declaration caused the entire office to fall silent. It was true that I grew up in a single-parent household and started working after high school, but I had never broadcasted that to everyone. Alex's decision to air my personal life like that caught the attention of everyone in the bank. Despite my flawless record and contributions that boosted the bank's success, it seemed I was no longer needed here. If that's the case, the next step for me was to start job hunting. As that thought crossed my mind, I found myself surprisingly calm and composed. Understood. Thank you for everything. I accepted with a cheerful tone, signed the resignation letter on the spot, and began packing up my belongings. I bid farewell to my colleagues, who were buzzing about the sudden situation. Thank you for all your support. I'll be on my way now. If Alex kept running the bank this recklessly, there wouldn't be a future for this place. I felt bad for leaving my colleagues behind, but once I finished packing, I left the office. As I walked away, my coworkers watched me, visibly stunned. Some of them looked like they were about to cry and begged me to reconsider. Considering my sales record, their reaction made sense. And as for Alex, he stood there with his mouth agape, staring at me. He must have expected me to panic and fall apart after being handed my resignation. Instead, I had boldly declared my departure and left the company without hesitation. Alex looked completely blindsided and stood in shock for a while. Just as I was about to walk out of the office, Alex finally called out, "Are you really going to quit? Once you leave, you'll be unemployed starting tomorrow. Who would hire someone from a single-parent background with only a high school diploma? You don't need to worry about me. This is my decision." Alex's eyes darkened nervously, and he seemed flustered, but I stayed firm in my resolve and left the room. On my way out, I submitted the resignation letter and finalized the paperwork to use up the remaining vacation days. There was nothing left for me to do at this bank. However, just as I stepped outside the building, I heard hurried footsteps behind me. When I turned around, I saw Alex standing there, his face flushed red. Do you really understand what you've done? You just quit the company. You know I didn't force you to resign, right? Yes, I chose to leave of my own free will. I have no complaints and no misunderstandings. I'm sorry for causing such a commotion. When Alex heard my response, he looked stunned. He had probably expected me to beg to stay, crying for a second chance. But I had already made up my mind to leave the bank behind. With one final nod, I headed home for good. I didn't actually think I'd quit on the spot. However, that brief moment of peace didn't last long. The next morning, as I was eating breakfast, my phone suddenly rang. The caller number showed it was from my former workplace, the bank I had just left yesterday. Why are they calling me? Did I forget to wrap up something? Curious, but unable to ignore the call, I picked up. The moment I hit the answer button, a loud voice boomed through the line. Finally, you answered. What's the deal with that? Get to the bank immediately, you hear me? With all due respect, I've already resigned. I can't think of any reason why I'd need to come in. I was about to hang up when Alex continued shouting at me. There's something we need to discuss about your resignation. Just get here quickly. I can't explain everything over the phone. Understood. I'll come over. I knew that if I hung up, Alex would keep calling until I agreed. Annoyed by his persistence, I quickly got ready. My mom watched me curiously as I prepared to leave. The bank called me in, so I'll be out for a bit. I gave her a brief explanation and left the house. About 30 minutes later, I arrived at my former workplace. As soon as I headed toward my old desk, a colleague rushed over to me, visibly flustered. They led me to the president's office and explained the situation along the way. Apparently, shortly after arriving at work, Alex started screaming nonsensically and throwing a fit. He then demanded that I be called in and even started dialing my number himself. Wondering what this was all about, I entered the president's office, which was adorned with luxurious carpeting. Inside, I saw Alex waving a newspaper around with a half-crazed expression. Is this David mentioned in the article you? Oh, I see. The interview I gave has already been published. When Alex heard my reply, his face turned pale and red, shifting between the two shades in quick succession. I let out a sigh. In my mind, it was clear now that Alex hadn't been briefed by his father, the former president. The article was about the future of the financial industry, shaped by emerging technologies such as AI. I had been interviewed as a representative expert on the server infrastructure needed for banks of the future. After graduating from high school, I joined a local company. The main reason I entered the workforce right after high school was because my dad had passed away suddenly from an illness when I was in 5th grade. My mom, who had been a stay-at-home mom until then, suddenly became responsible for supporting our entire household. I was deeply grateful to her for working tirelessly from morning till night and promised myself I would repay her kindness once I grew up. My mom found work as a part-time administrative assistant at a local company. She had never worked before, learned on the job while also earning the necessary qualifications, and poured herself into her work. Thanks to her, I had a smooth school life and graduated elementary school without any issues. I went on to the local high school, where I made good friends and enjoyed my everyday life. However, as everyone around me started to seriously think about their future education or careers, I began to realize just how much of a burden my mom had been carrying. I couldn't continue living carefreely while she worked so hard. That's when I made a firm decision. Mom, I'm going to work after I graduate high school. I can't let you bear the burden alone. So starting next year, I want you to take better care of yourself and rest more. One fall morning, just as I had started my last year of high school, I told her this. But my mom firmly insisted that I should continue my education. The truth is, I was at the top of my class for all 3 years of high school and excelled in academics. Math was my strongest subject, and I even placed in the top 100 in the state during a national standardized test and received an award. Because of this, my mom believed that I should continue my studies through college. I wasn't willing to back down. I understand what you're saying, but going to college isn't my life's goal. What's more important is that I grow into someone who can stand on his own. I vividly remember the surprised look in her eyes when I said that. It was the first time my mom realized how seriously I'd been thinking about my future. To ease her concerns, I carefully explained that I already had a specific company in mind where I wanted to work and walked her through my life plans. After hours of talking, She finally understood that I wasn't choosing a job because we couldn't afford tuition, but because I genuinely wanted to work at that company. And so, I graduated from high school and immediately joined a local company. The first time I got a paycheck, I felt the full weight of hard work and the value of earning my own money. The company was an IT firm, and with my knack for math, I quickly became engrossed in programming. It turned out the work suited me perfectly. I absorbed knowledge at a pace that amazed even my senior coworkers. I didn't just keep up. I mastered every new technology that emerged, one after another. In particular, I became a world-class expert in cybersecurity. It was my reputation as a trailblazer in the industry that caught the attention of Alex's father, the former president of the bank. Back when he was still in good health, he approached me with a request to secure personal and financial data for the bank's future. Moved by his desire to protect the local community who trusted the bank with their savings, I decided to switch jobs and join the bank. Since then, I've led the bank's cybersecurity efforts, revolutionizing its security protocols. Over the years, I developed innovative technologies that reshaped industry standards. My achievements caught the attention of not only the financial world but other industries as well, leading to numerous interview requests. One of those interviews was what led to the newspaper article that caused this commotion. Alex's face was as red as a tomato as he waved the newspaper featuring my name and photo in large print around and raged. "Why are you being featured so prominently? You're supposed to be a high school diploma from a single-parent household." With all due respect, Alex, my work has nothing to do with my background or education. Isn't it the results that matter more than how someone was raised? Alex, whose face had turned red all the way to his hairline, was still unwilling to accept my response. Frustrated, he turned on the TV, but the news channel was also showing a segment about my interview. The security system I had unveiled was far more versatile and advanced than any previous solutions. The interviewer on screen enthusiastically praised my accomplishments, marveling at how lucky the company was to have me before concluding the segment. The program then transitioned to the next feature. The screen transitioned to the next feature. Could it be that David is really someone of global importance? Why does our bank have someone who's making headlines on TV? After watching the news, Alex seemed to finally recognize my value. He muttered to himself repeatedly, then suddenly raised his head and stepped toward me. "I understand the situation. You've surely learned your lesson by now, so I'm granting you a special chance to return. Starting today, I expect you to work hard for the bank again." "What? Why are you saying this now? I already submitted my resignation yesterday." Alex was the one who kicked me out in the first place, and naturally, I had no intention of returning to this bank. I was sure that yesterday's exchange had made that clear. But Alex stared at me with his mouth hanging open. "Resignation? That document is void." Of course, having a globally recognized figure in our bank would be a huge point of pride for our security. Even so, I've already accepted an offer at a new company. "I'm not coming back," I calmly explained. Alex's eyes narrowed in frustration. "Why? I'm telling you that you're welcome to return. There's no need to be stubborn and lie. This bank gave a high school graduate from a single-parent household like you a chance. Just come back right now. Will you pay me $330,000 a month?" Alex's jaw dropped so far it looked like it might unhinge. $330,000 a month. You must mean per year. Even $30,000 a year is generous for someone with your background. But I'll make an exception for you. No, I meant $30,000 per month. That's how much my new company values my skills. When I stated this calmly, sweat began to drip down Alex's forehead. Even after seeing my accomplishments broadcast nationwide, he still couldn't fully grasp my worth due to his outdated way of judging people by their upbringing and education. As Alex opened and closed his mouth like a fish gasping for air, I continued, "If you can't meet those terms, I won't return to this bank." "That's ridiculous. There's no way you could have found a new job so quickly after just resigning yesterday." Alex spat his words at me, glaring fiercely. He was clearly upset that I had rejected his offer and was desperate to find fault with me. No matter how famous you are, no company would hire someone who just resigned out of the blue. No responsible manager would take that risk. That's why I rejoined a company that knows me well, the local IT firm that hired me when I first started working after high school. Hearing my answer, Alex stood there dumbfounded. A local IT company capable of paying $330,000 a month? There's only one. Yes, the very company you're thinking of. They've been a loyal client of this bank for years, but after hearing about everything that led to my resignation, they're considering their partnership. Our town is home to one of the nation's top IT companies, known across the country. Anyone who hears its name recognizes it instantly. The reason they had stayed loyal to this bank was because of me. In fact, the bank's financial stability largely depended on that partnership. Even someone as out of touch as Alex understood the value of that company. His mouth hung open, and his face grew visibly paler by the second. There's no way David, a high school graduate from a single-parent household, joined that company, and now they're canceling their contract with us. Yes, I'm a high school graduate, and yes, I grew up in a single-parent household. But a person's value isn't determined by their background or education. It's defined by their achievements. Don't you think? As I spoke calmly, Alex's face turned red, then blue, then red again. I'll double your salary. No, I'll pay you $30,000 a month. You're indispensable to this bank. I admit that now. Please come back and help us keep that contract. Alex's face twisted in desperation as he pleaded with me, his clenched fists trembling. Knowing Alex's pride, I was sure he had never imagined he'd be in a position where he had to lower himself like this. But now that the survival of the bank was at stake, he finally realized the gravity of the situation and was willing to change his attitude. If Alex had recognized his mistakes earlier, things might not have come to this. However, rather than forgive Alex, who dismissed the opinions of senior employees and labeled them as dead weight, I could only feel pity for him. So, I won't be returning to his bank as you envisioned. Please continue doing your best with your young team, I said, giving Alex a look filled with both pity and disbelief. Once I had said everything I needed to, I quietly left the room. Even as I walked away, I could hear Alex's pitiful voice calling after me, trying to stop me. Eventually, I heard a loud thud as he collapsed to the floor, crying out loudly, but I no longer cared. Without me leading the security team, I was sure the bank would soon be in trouble. And if the top IT company in the area pulled out their dealings with the bank, it was only a matter of time before the bank's financial situation worsened. I hated the thought of my former colleagues being caught up in this mess. However, Alex's reckless management had brought this upon the bank, and there was nothing I could do about it. As I left the president's office, I glanced back for just a moment. In the lavishly decorated room, Alex stood frozen in place, speechless. After that, I rejoined the IT company where I had previously worked and settled back into an enjoyable daily routine. Having worked there before, I was able to fit in easily with both the office environment and my colleagues. Moreover, since the job focused on developing security systems, my specialty, I had no trouble enjoying a peaceful and productive work life. I had forgotten just how fulfilling it could be to work with trustworthy teammates and focus on meaningful projects, something I'd lost sight of during my time at the bank under Alex's leadership. However, during one lunch break, I came across a piece of news that made me do a double take. It was an announcement that the bank I used to work for was facing bankruptcy. Just as I had warned Alex, losing the partnership with our IT firm had caused their revenue to plummet. Worse yet, rumors about the bank losing a major partner spread quickly, causing other businesses to also cut ties. The news segment even pointed out that the bank's downfall was largely due to its loss of skilled employees. Based on the timing and details, they were most likely referring to me. I felt bad for my former coworkers, but I was also genuinely surprised to see my contributions recognized to that extent. When I returned to the office after lunch, I was informed that a visitor was waiting for me. When I reached the lobby, I was shocked to see Alex standing there. He looked much different from how he had during my time at the bank. His face was pale, and he seemed jittery, clinging to me with desperate eyes. As soon as I greeted him, Alex burst into tears and dropped to his knees at my feet. The bank is going to collapse if this continues. Please come back and save the bank. Alex cried out loud, causing a scene as he rambled on about the bank's situation. Even though I hadn't asked, I listened as he went on. To avoid the worried stares of passing employees, I took Alex to a nearby cafe. There, I listened as he gave me a detailed explanation of the bank's current state. Apparently, after I left, Alex had taken it upon himself to oversee the maintenance of the bank's security system. However, his pride didn't allow him to continue using the system I had created. I can't trust a system made by a high school graduate from a single-parent home. We need to order a new one, Alex proudly introduced a new security system. However, during the transition, numerous issues arose, causing major disruptions to the bank's daily operations. As a result, not only businesses but also individual customers began withdrawing from the bank one after another. Alex explained that he had been scolded daily by the former president, his father, who blamed him as the responsible party. Once he finished his explanation, Alex broke down in tears again, bowing his head and pleading with me. "Your former colleagues are in trouble. Please come back to the bank. I was forced out by you, Alex. You even mailed me my resignation letter. Don't act like it didn't happen." When I first saw that resignation letter with my name on it, I felt deeply hurt and sad. But after returning to my current workplace, where my value is recognized and I can thrive, I found immense satisfaction. Working with reliable colleagues and being able to contribute meaningfully has left me with no complaints. That's why I had no reason to return to the bank. Please, I'm begging you. If you don't come back, I'm going to be removed as the president. I understand your situation, but that doesn't give me a reason to return to the bank. I respected the former president, so please pass my regards to him. I was utterly disappointed with Alex, who only cared about saving his own position. With that thought, I left the cafe behind me. I could still hear Alex sobbing and wailing. In the end, the bank was driven to the brink of bankruptcy. However, whether fortunately or unfortunately, it was acquired by a major bank, and my former colleagues were able to keep their jobs. I was relieved that they regained some stability in their lives, though not everyone's situation remained the same. The most prominent change was Alex's fate. Alex was held accountable for his poor leadership and was forced to resign. But the story didn't end there. During the pre-merger investigation, it was discovered that Alex had been embezzling bank funds under the guise of reforming the bank. Alex had filed personal expenses, such as private dinners and entertainment, as business costs. It went as far as using company funds for his private trips and luxury car purchases. The investigation revealed that he had misappropriated a significant amount of money. Alex was charged with embezzlement, arrested, and faced a lawsuit demanding repayment of damages, along with criminal charges. Although he had already been dismissed, he was still held liable. He's currently awaiting trial. Once a man who lorded over us bankers with arrogance, Alex is now pale with fear, spending his days trembling as he desperately tries to avoid punishment.
"Hey, please come on over. Together, let's go to bed." She hadn't spoken anything like that to me in 5 years. I sat down next to her carefully. She offered me a big smile wrapped in the warmth I hadn't felt in a long time when I looked directly into her face. For a brief while, I was genuinely pleased. I realized that I truly wanted to spend my entire life with her. I did consider that, but in the end, I was the one who caused our separation. I suppose I ought to talk about that first. I was 30 when it all started. I was simply another employee at an office. I worked hard and did my job when I got to work, but I wasn't getting promoted very quickly. Even an ordinary person like me once met by coincidence, and that someone was Jessica. Jessica and I met at work. We began going out to eat together because she was a high achiever at a client company, and eventually we began dating. Jessica, on the other hand, was focused, capable, driven, and obviously headed for success. When she was fully engaged in her task, she was stunning. Jessica kept working even after we got married and had a kid. In fact, she grew even more involved in her work and was promoted to manager after delivering birth. She didn't, however, disregard our house in any way. She did a good job of juggling motherhood and housework. But it hurt me to watch Jessica handle things so gracefully. I was unhappy to see her succeed at work and at home, earning more than me. I was merely jealous of Jessica, and I knew it. But I was unable to control my negative emotions, so I turned to drink as a way out. Maybe it would have been better if I'd been honest with Jessica about how I felt and my shortcomings, but I was too prideful to do that. Jessica, on the other hand, appeared confused and unsure of how to handle my heavy drinking. Jessica and I stopped talking to one another and drifted apart. We were divorced when Jessica and I were 35 years old, and our daughter Lily was 5 years old. Lily accompanied her mother. It made sense. A man like me, who turned to alcohol for solace, couldn't possibly be a parent. I could feel the house getting bigger and quieter after my wife and child left. After the divorce, Jessica accepted a job overseas that she had previously turned down and departed right away. Lily naturally accompanied her. I did not realize how much I had neglected my family for booze until I was left on my own and lonely. As a small atonement, I gave up alcohol. After that, all I had to do was work, so I gave it my all, but I didn't get much done. I continued to be an ordinary worker. When Jessica got back from her trip, she promised to let me visit Lily. All I could do was wait for our next meeting to happen. Would Jessica allow me to visit this man who had turned to booze, I wondered. I don't think she wants to see my face at all. Despite my knowledge that I should give up on Jessica, because I was the one who destroyed our family, my affections for her persisted even after the divorce. After the divorce, my daughter Lily called me out of the blue 5 years later. Even though I had been paying child support, we hadn't communicated or met. I hadn't heard her voice in the previous 5 years. Naturally, Lily's voice sounded older than my memory of her at 11. Furthermore, when she added, "There's someone I want you to meet," I was taken aback. Jessica doesn't seem to be attending the meeting that we had planned to have again. I was taken aback when Lily abruptly mentioned that she wanted me to meet someone after they had both returned from a trip overseas. It was all shocking to me. The surprises didn't stop there, though. When I got to the family restaurant where I was meant to meet Lily, the adult Lily was seated next to an unfamiliar man in his 30s. That's when I understood that man had to be the one she wanted me to meet. He's undoubtedly Jessica's new partner and her new father figure. He had a nice tan and appeared to be a kind man. I admit it, I still feel something for Jessica. I don't know what to do, and there's no way I can speak with Jessica's new partner. At the restaurant's entryway, I stood motionless. But both Lily and the man saw me. "Dad, come on over." Lily gave a hand motion. She must have believed that I was trying to find them. The man seated behind Lily gave me a small nod. I did not move. That's when I pivoted on my heel and took off. I heard Lily yelling, "Dad," from behind me, but I just hurried out of the restaurant without stopping. I know that sounds pitiful, but I simply couldn't bring myself to go see Jessica's partner right now. Jessica's new partner, though, moved very quickly. I was apprehended quickly. We went to a nearby park when Lily caught up, and she let out a loud sigh. "You're completely wrong, Dad. My father is not this man. Mom works with him. He's married and has 5 children. The fact that he wasn't Jessica's boyfriend astonished me more than the fact that he had 5 kids. Their house must be really energetic. Hello, I'm Tom. Nice to meet you. We cultivate crops. Jessica has lent us land and farm equipment, which has been a huge assistance with our farm. I also occasionally teach her about farming. I told him I wanted to see my dad today, and he drove me here. The amount of knowledge was nearly too much for me to handle. What was Jessica's method of meeting someone in a farming community? Then Lily disclosed a startling truth. Mom is now lending a hand at the farm. She left her former position. Tom expanded on his remarks. After suffering a breakdown due to excessive labor during her foreign assignment, Jessica came back to the United States 3 years ago. Tom was someone Jessica's parents knew. When Jessica said she wanted to leave the corporate and city life behind, he had assisted her in finding a home in the country. In addition, he assisted her in finding employment on his farm so she could get money by giving her land and farm equipment. He was an ally to Jessica and Lily. I was ignorant of all of this. Perhaps she didn't want to depend on me even in times of need, in which case I would have assisted if she had told me. Lily firmly stated, "My mom is the person I wanted you to meet," as I was considering this. I heard Mom mention that she wanted to apologize to Dad while she was on the phone with Grandma. Please forgive me for what? I'm not sure, but she stated she wants to apologize, but is unsure of how to do so at this time. Mom hasn't been feeling well recently, and I believe she's worried about your relationship. Are you going to meet her? I was to blame for the divorce. Jessica doesn't need to apologize to me. In fact, this is ideal. I see Jessica once more. I promised Lily I would drop by Jessica and Lily's place shortly. My heart was pounding as we agreed on a meeting time and then said our goodbyes. I've been living a life of regret ever since the divorce. I hadn't even managed to apologize for starting the divorce back then when I was so drunk. I decided that when we met, I would give her a sincere apology. That's what my innermost decision was. The day I was supposed to go see Jessica and Lily's place came around fast. After boarding an express train and subsequently a local train, the view outside changed from bustling city life to peaceful rural areas in less than 60 minutes. It still shocked me that Jessica, a once vibrant career lady, was helping out on the country farm. Upon arriving at the specified address, I noticed a conventional home encircled by open spaces. Lily was the only one to meet me because she had informed me that Jessica wouldn't be back till the evening. All that remained now was to bide our time till Jessica returned. Greetings from our home to yours. Naturally, there were no cafes or coffee shops to pass the time. Jessica arrived, and Lily and I waited while we stared out at the enormous fields, mountains, and prairies. Lily abruptly collapsed into a blade of grass. Hey, please come on over. Together, let's lie down. That was the first time Lily had said something similar to me in 5 years. I sat down next to her carefully. With a big smile on her face, she gave me a warm smile that I hadn't felt in a long time. It was a happy moment that surrounded me. I never imagined spending another day with Lily on this level. Is this how every day feels like today? I couldn't help but hope Lily and I could spend more days like this. That concept naturally occurred to me. Time seemed to fly by while Lily and I were unwinding. And then I heard Harry's voice call. I turned to face the voice as I sat up. Jessica was there, someone I hadn't seen in 5 years. She had on work clothes that I had never seen her wear before, and her skin was suntanned and makeup-free. She used to dress in more ornate ways, but she now appeared younger and healthier. Jessica came outside, and Lily went in. She seems to desire some alone time with us. Why are you here? Jessica inquired. Lily wanted to meet, so she came over. I told Jessica that Lily was coming with Tom instead of bringing up the bit about her wanting to apologize. Is that accurate? After all, she was eager to visit her father. However, did it surprise you that we reside in a rural area? To be honest, I was. I never thought you would be a farmer or live in the country. Jessica smiled for the first time that day at what I said. Me neither, but I grew weary of going to work every day. I only desired to see some vegetation. I see, but it's amazing that you've taken up farming as a job. Not really. I started out knowing nothing at all, and I have only lately been able to handle my own field. I still assist Tom and other farmers to pay my living expenses. She must have found living abroad more difficult than I had thought if she would take to such extreme measures to stay away from going back to her corporate job. When things at work got hard, I apologized for throwing all the parenting on you. Do the payments for child support suffice? Do I need to raise them? I don't mind, you know. No, it's all right. To be honest, I hadn't dealt with the child support. I considered putting money toward her future educational expenses. Are you still with the same company? Jessica might have recalled my struggles at work, how I got jealous of her, and how I ended up drinking. I am, indeed. After the divorce, I made an effort to immerse myself in my profession, but I still go to work every day like any other employee and do my job. That alone is incredible. That was the time I wanted to apologize to you. I didn't understand why you started drinking. I even believed you ought to give it more sometimes. However, having experienced my own breakdown at work, I could relate to the need to run away. When work gets tough, it gets terrible, and it feels like a part of life. I apologize for not supporting you, listening to you, or being there for you. At what Jessica had said, I shook my head. It's not that the work is difficult. It's that I felt horrible comparing myself to someone with your level of ability. I know it's pathetic. You were so cool and so productive that I felt bad for you. I regret not being able to tell you how I really felt, but my small pride got in the way. Jessica paid close attention to everything I said. So you had that feeling. I regret not listening to you more when we were first married. Perhaps I was too quick to write you off as weak because I was too preoccupied with myself. No, I was the one who neglected our family and started drinking. It was not at all your fault. I have always wanted to say I'm sorry. I sincerely apologize for what I did at the time. We talked about our sentiments and then enjoyed dinner together with Lily, using the veggies from Jessica's garden. There are benefits to country living, but there are also many drawbacks. But Jessica seemed to be enjoying all of the difficulties, as she grinned while describing her challenges with us over dinner. She had not the smallest sorrow about quitting her work. I clung to my job so much, but once I let go, it turned out not to be such a big deal after all, I replied. Lily, observing what I had said, proposed, Dad, why don't you come live here too? Jessica and I looked at each other shamefully and couldn't stop laughing. I started going to Lily and Jessica's house on the weekends after we were reunited. But one day, Jessica was helping a farmer named Tom, and I got a call from him telling me that Jessica had been hurt. I'd hastily left work and made my way to Jessica. It appeared like someone had broken into the residence. Luckily, the damage was limited to a push-related fracture. That it wasn't more serious was a relief. After prompt assistance from neighbors, the burglar was apprehended. When Jessica saw that I had left work early for her, she became upset. Sorry, it's not a big deal. Not at all. That's severe enough, getting broken in by a burglar and breaking a bone, I retorted. I spent some time helping Jessica with chores and taking care of Lily at her place using my paid leave. Even though Jessica's injury wasn't ideal, they had a great time spending the days together from dawn to night. Even though it was a lot more labor-intensive than I had anticipated, I gave farming a try at Jessica's property. Jessica and Lily teased me for being sore all over, but their smiles made it seem like a fortunate break. Lily started crying when it was time for me to go. Dad, please don't go. Lily begged me to stay with her, and I said, We'll be together starting next month. What? She questioned. Why are you coming to stay again? At her inquiry, I grinned. In fact, I've been considering moving back in with Mom and you. Is that acceptable? Lily's eyes shone, despite the fact that she had been crying minutes before. She was ecstatic and shouted, Really? As a matter of fact, I had resumed dating Jessica not too long ago. In addition, we had discussed moving back in together, and I had given notice to my employer that I would be leaving in 2 months. However, I requested to move my resignation ahead, since I was worried about the safety of 2 women living alone after the burglary happened. I'll be back at the company only to hand things off. I'm going to be moving in with Jessica and Lily next month. In an effort to set up chances for local income, I have also been spending my weekends visiting other farmers and agricultural cooperatives. We were going to surprise Lily, but her tears had other ideas. It was no longer shocking, but Lily's happiness made it all worthwhile. Jessica and I got remarried 6 months later, and now the 3 of us live together as a family. There isn't a convenience shop close by, and our income isn't what it was when I worked for a corporation. Although it may seem inconvenient, we are content to relish the simplicity and have the mental room to do so. Sharing our everyday experiences and eating meals as a family is the most important thing. Knowing one another's shortcomings by now, Jessica and I have made the decision to be honest with each other about everything and work together to find answers. As a pair, we talk about our relationship frequently. Jessica is the more experienced farmer that I am studying from in the hopes of becoming as knowledgeable as she is. The days of being constrained by small-minded pride and feeling inadequate seem like a long time ago. I am resolved to value my family more than ever this time around because the ties that I once believed to be irreversibly severed have been restored.
Rachel was meant to be at school one morning, but she came home crying. She had a test paper in her hand that said, "A liar gets a 0. Your dad being a gang member is a lie, right?" Mr. Anderson asked. Rachel wailed pitifully as I held her tenderly. "I appreciate you telling me. It seems that I ought to speak with Mr. Anderson. I brought 50 of my men to the school a few days later. Gregory is my name. I currently reside with my cherished daughter, Rachel, after my wife passed away a few years ago. Rachel began the 3rd grade at her elementary school this year. Despite the fact that I don't have much time for family vacations, I always find time for breakfast. So, how's school lately?" "It's the same as always." "I understand." We had breakfast as usual that morning, but Rachel didn't seem like herself. I made an effort to speak with her, but our exchange ended in silence. Given that winter was approaching and it was still early, perhaps she simply didn't want to get out of her cozy bed. I chose not to confront her. Rachel walked glumly out of the house after breakfast. I yelled, "Have a good day." "Yeah," she said with a feeble nod. I cocked my head, wondering whether this kind of morning had always been difficult for her. I didn't have time to consider it, but something didn't feel right. I had to leave for work as well. After putting on my pricey jacket, tying my tie, and putting on a collared dress shirt, I headed to the office. "Good morning." "Hey." I welcomed my rugged-looking men when I got to the office. I calmly lifted my hand to acknowledge everyone as they bowed one after the other. Following the first, I sat down at the rear of the office and reached into my jacket pocket, but I couldn't find what I was looking for. What? I left my phone at home, damn it. That morning, I had ignored my own preparation since I was preoccupied with Rachel. It wouldn't have mattered much when I was younger, but these days I can't function without a phone. The organization uses phones for internal communication as well. I sighed and rose from my chair. "I'm going out for a while. I will return shortly. Compile the paperwork from today and the report from yesterday while I'm away." "Yes, sir." The front door was unlocked when I got home, which was a short walk away. That seemed strange. I normally take care to lock up. Rachel, who should have been at school, was in the living room when I carefully stepped in. "Rachel? Why are you here?" "Ah, Dad." Rachel appeared startled as well, but she quickly averted her eyes. "How did school go?" "By now, it ought to have begun." It's fine. Don't worry about it." "No, it's not fine. I won't know what's going on unless you tell me." "Did something happen?" "It's fine. Just drop it." "Hey, wait." Without giving any real explanation, Rachel ran off to her room. It was obvious something had happened, but pressing her now wouldn't help. So I decided to call the school. Using the phone left in the living room, I called the school. A woman named Ms. Thompson, the vice principal, answered. I didn't know the school hierarchy well, but I figured I'd get more details from Rachel's teacher than the vice principal. I explained that I was Rachel's father and asked to speak with Mr. Anderson. After a moment, the young man came on the line and introduced himself as Eric Anderson. He seemed annoyed, probably because he was pulled out of class. I could hear the irritation in his voice. "Gregory, what can I do for you?" "It's about Rachel. Did she come to school today?" "No. She wasn't here during roll call, and she hasn't shown up to any classes either. In fact, not just today, she's been absent for a while now." "What? For a while? You mean Rachel hasn't been coming to school at all?" "I wasn't told anything." "Why didn't you contact me? Are you trying to blame the school for your lack of communication with your daughter?" "It's the parents' responsibility to supervise. Maybe the reason she stopped coming lies at home." "What do you mean by that?" I tried to push for an answer, but Mr. Anderson just said, "There's nothing more I can say," and handed the phone back to Miss Thompson. Flustered, she apologized, saying, "I am truly sorry." But apologizing wasn't going to fix anything. I asked Miss Thompson to look into Mr. Anderson's behavior and ended the call. I was furious at Mr. Anderson's attitude, but thinking about it calmly. Maybe he wasn't entirely wrong. If I had paid more attention, maybe I would have noticed something was wrong with Rachel sooner. Maybe I hadn't communicated with her as well as I should have. But even when I asked her, she wouldn't talk, and the school was no help. Not knowing what else to do, I called my mother. "Yes? What is it? Another parenting crisis?" "Oh yeah? Something like that." Every time you call, it's the same story. Bring me some good news for once, would you? Sorry, ever since I lost my wife, I had no one to turn to for parenting advice. So I had swallowed my pride and started calling my mom. Raising a daughter on my own has been harder than I ever imagined. Sometimes I think risking my life at work is 100 times easier. Maybe sensing how I felt, my mother had become more open about giving me advice. So what happened this time? Well, it turns out Rachel hasn't been going to school for a while. I always saw her off in the mornings, but it seems she was coming home after I left. Oh dear, she won't tell me what's going on. And when I called the school, they basically said, maybe it's a problem at home. What's a parent supposed to do in a situation like this? Well, maybe something happened at school. I've heard that even among children these days, there can be complicated social issues. It's hard, but the most important thing is how Rachel feels. How Rachel feels. That's right. If she's running away from school, then you need to be the one place she can run to. Don't scold her without knowing the reason. If she doesn't want to talk, then let her be silent. Accept her with open arms no matter what. You need to be on Rachel's side. My mother's words, coming from the woman who never gave up on raising a delinquent like me, carried real weight. She was right. I couldn't afford to be shaken. I had to make sure Rachel saw home as a safe place, a place she could truly feel at ease. Yeah, you're right. I'm still figuring things out, but I'll think of whatever I can do for Rachel. For Rachel's sake, I'll do anything I can to help. Just take care of yourself too, okay? Yeah, thanks. I tapped my phone and ended the call. Come to think of it, I'd been so wrapped up in work that I always put myself and my family second. Even when I got married, I was already at an age where people said I'd missed the window. Back when my wife was alive, I depended on her for almost everything, from parenting to housework. After she passed, I threw myself into work to make sure Rachel never lacked financially. But I didn't have many memories of just sitting down and talking with her or playing with her. No wonder people said I lacked communication. I had to start by being more present for Rachel. With that decision made, I rushed back to the office to finish work early and make time for family. I managed to wrap up work and get home before sunset. I stood a bit nervously in front of Rachel's room. I'm home. Hey, Rachel, how about we go out for dinner tonight? The closed door cracked open, and Rachel peeked out. Really? Yeah. Let's skip my lousy cooking for once and go have something tasty outside. Is that okay? You used to say going out was dangerous. Yeah, I know, but it's not like it used to be. And no matter what happens, I'll protect you. You don't have to worry. Let's go. Rachel came out with her eyes sparkling. She clung tightly to my leg. Given the nature of my work, taking my family out in public had always been a risk. Back then, the neighborhood wasn't exactly safe either, so going out together was out of the question. But now the streets were calmer, and I could stay right by her side, so there was no problem. She's my one and only daughter. I'd give my life to protect her. With that strong conviction, I took Rachel out to eat for the first time in years. During dinner, I didn't mention school once. Of course, I was concerned, but I figured if I brought it up, it would cloud her face again. And for the first time in a long while, Rachel laughed. Truly laughed. It was hard to believe how down she'd seemed earlier that day. She smiled brightly, chatted excitedly, and ate with such delight. Yes, Rachel had always been a smart, cheerful girl. So for her to look that withdrawn, it really wasn't normal. And the fact that I hadn't noticed it sooner just showed how immature I still was as a parent. It was the communication gap, just like they said. Sorry for being such a lousy dad. Huh? What did you say? Oh, nothing. Is it good? Yeah. At least for now, her spirits seemed lifted. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but for the moment, all I could do was stay close and keep watch. After dinner, and all the way until bedtime, Rachel kept smiling. I just hoped that smile wouldn't fade. The next morning was a complete contrast to the day before. I watched Rachel leave the house looking energetic, with her school bag on and her cap in place. She definitely looked like she was heading to school, but until yesterday, she had only pretended and come back home afterward. There was no guarantee today would be different. I didn't think she had to force herself to go, but not knowing the reason behind it still worried me. To make sure I didn't miss a single sign, I decided to work from home that day and wait for her. I'd already given instructions to my men yesterday to keep things running without me at the office. I laid my phone and paperwork out on the table in the living room and got to work. As I was drafting a report for my boss, I suddenly heard the front door unlock, the sound of the latch turning. My phone screen read 9:15 a.m., about 30 minutes into the first period. Feeling a sense of dread, I rushed to the entryway, and there was Rachel, looking like she was about to burst into tears. Rachel, Dad. The moment she saw my face, she finally broke down crying. I wrapped my arms around her small frame right there. You did your best. I'm so glad you came home. Let's go inside for now, okay? Just like my mother said, if Rachel was running away from school, then I needed to be the place she could run to without fear. No matter what, I would protect her. That thought solidified in me again. Back in the living room, I handed Rachel a warm mug of hot chocolate. She placed a crumpled piece of paper she'd been holding onto the table and took the cup. I quickly cleared away my work and sat beside her on the couch. Sipping the hot chocolate slowly to cool it down, Rachel gradually seemed to settle down. Rachel, can I ask what happened? Only if you feel like talking, of course. I won't push you. This. Her face twisted just a little with pain, but Rachel gathered her courage and responded. She pointed at the crumpled piece of paper on the table. I carefully opened it and saw it was a test paper. Rachel, who took after her mother and was always bright, had been marked with a 0. And worse, a liar gets a 0. What is this? There were no markings or corrections on the paper, just those big red words scrawled across it. Even the easy questions, ones I could understand, Rachel had answered correctly, but it looked like it hadn't even been graded. It made no sense at all. I was speechless, and Rachel began to tremble again. I could only imagine how she must have felt receiving that paper and then coming home with it. The thought alone tore me apart. I hugged her again. That must have been so hard. But you're not a liar. I know that, Rachel. Everything's going to be all right. You're okay now. What, Dad? 10 minutes later, once her tears had settled, Rachel began to quietly share what had been happening. Remember around the middle of the first semester when we got back our science tests? There was this one question I solved a little differently from the textbook. Mr. Anderson said it was wrong, but I don't think it was. I found the same method in a book from the library. And when I asked Ms. Thompson, she said, that's valid too. But Mr. Anderson wouldn't regrade it. How come? Since then, Mr. Anderson stopped talking to me. He even started saying stuff that made me feel stupid. Then the boys in class joined in and started teasing me. So that test is what led to them calling you a liar? No, I don't think this is about the test. You have an idea what it's about. I never told you this, but our school does parent observation days every semester. Wait, really? I had no idea. Yeah, I figured that since you try not to scare people around you, you probably didn't want to come to parent observation days. So I didn't tell you. I'm sorry. No, it's fine. But what does that have to do with you being called a liar? When Mr. Anderson asked why you never came to parent observation days, I told him, because my dad is a gang member. I had no words. My job is being part of an organized crime group, which people call a gang. I was a delinquent kid with a bad attitude, lousy grades, and no interest in a normal job. It was through a certain connection that I met Mr. Keller, the boss who took me in and led me down this path. While doing work for the organization, both my senior and Mr. Keller constantly drilled into me. Don't bother civilians. Don't make your parents cry. Thanks to them, I think I've developed at least a bit of a decent sense of humanity. Still, to regular folks, I probably look intimidating. I've got large tattoos, a build that a suit can't hide, and even a few scars on my face. So I tried to avoid school events because I didn't want to scare the staff or parents. But I never imagined that my absence would end up taking away Rachel's smile. Mr. Anderson said, that can't be true. Your dad being a gang member is a lie. He's probably just too embarrassed to come because he's a low-life idiot. He didn't even listen to me and started calling me a liar in front of everyone. I see. I gently patted Rachel's head as she quietly sipped her hot chocolate. I was glad she told me. Rachel hadn't done anything wrong. There really was an issue with that test. And it's true. I'd been keeping my distance to avoid making people uncomfortable because of who I am. But Mr. Anderson had refused to acknowledge any of that. Even during our phone call, he'd come off arrogant. Maybe he's got too much pride. It felt like he looked down on Rachel just because she was a kid. Pathetic. Rachel, thank you for telling me. Sounds like I should really have a word with Mr. Anderson. Really? But don't you hate going to school? Well, it doesn't feel right never showing my face, especially when they're the ones taking care of you. You said a parent observation day happens every semester, right? When's the one for this semester? Next week. Perfect. I'll confront him. No. I mean, I'll go and say hello properly, okay? If you don't feel like going to school, you don't have to. Don't push yourself. Nope. If you're going, then I'm coming with you. Let's confront together. You're just going to school. Don't go picking up weird words. That one's on me, okay. Her expression lit up. It was a relief to see. But my real challenge was just beginning. In my own way, I would protect Rachel. With that, I contacted the office and let them know I had an unexpected confrontation scheduled for the following week. 1 week later, the parent observation day had arrived. I stopped by the office briefly, then headed to the school on foot. I wore a muted, professional-looking suit, one that wouldn't draw attention, but still passed for a civilian outfit. I stood at the entrance of the office building. Surrounding me were my stern-faced men. There were around 50 of them. Sorry, Gregory. It was short notice, so this is all we could round up. No, this is more than enough. Any more, and we'd be drawing too much attention. All right, let's move. Yes, sir. I led the way confidently, with the others falling in line behind me. I had told them to wear casual clothes that wouldn't stand out, not their usual suits. Of course, covering up their tattoos was non-negotiable. The sight of them all in their clumsy civilian outfits, most with no fashion sense whatsoever, was honestly hilarious, but I kept that to myself. And so, we arrived at Rachel's elementary school. Rachel should already be in class by now. I had to hold my head high for her sake, to make sure her efforts today wouldn't be wasted. We passed through the school gate, into the yard, heading for the building, when a woman suddenly came rushing out to stop us. Who are you people? Sorry to alarm you. I'm Gregory, the father of Rachel in class 3-1. Oh, you're the one who called about Rachel last week, right? Ah, so you remember. I was the one who transferred the call that day. Then you must be Miss Thompson. I'm terribly sorry for all the trouble. I'm here today to speak directly with Rachel's homeroom teacher, Mr. Anderson, I believe. Would you mind letting him know? Mr. Anderson? Yes, understood. He's still in class at the moment, so there may be a bit of a wait. Would you mind waiting in the reception room? Of course. Thank you. Certainly. But the gentlemen behind you, are they also guardians of students? Nah, don't worry. They'll wait outside. I'll go in alone. All right. You guys know the drill. Don't cause trouble and don't scare the civilians. Yes, sir. Leaving my men outside, I followed a clearly nervous Miss Thompson into the school and was shown into the reception room. She even offered me tea before saying, I'll go get Mr. Anderson right away, and left. I sat down on the guest sofa, sipping the tea as I waited for the man to arrive. A few minutes later, the chime rang through the speaker in the corner. Class must have just ended. Soon after, there was a knock at the door. I gave a short reply, and a young man, probably still in his 20s, entered with an arrogant swagger. He slumped into the sofa across from me and let out an exaggerated sigh. I'm Eric, the homeroom teacher for class 3-1. Nice to meet you. I'm Gregory, Rachel's father. Pleased to make your acquaintance. Ah, so you're the rumored gang member, he sneered. Mr. Anderson practically mocked me. Just imagining him speaking to Rachel the same way made my blood boil. But I kept my cool and responded calmly. Do you remember a few months back when Rachel asked you about her test answers? I understand she pointed out what she believed was a grading error. That might have happened, but I don't really remember. I mean, I don't make grading mistakes. Teachers are human too. Mistakes happen. What makes you so sure you're infallible? Well, I graduated from Tokyo University. Unlike common folks who keep making mistakes, I'm on a whole different level. But I wouldn't expect someone like you to understand that. There's no way someone like me would make a mistake a grade schooler could catch. Listening to him talk with such smug certainty made my frustration grow. Even I knew that Tokyo University was a top-tier school, but I didn't think that gave him the right to look down on Rachel. Tokyo University, huh? So what? What? You're telling me you're sure there was no mistake in grading just because you went to Tokyo University? That's right. Glad you finally understand. Honestly, talking to someone so beneath me is just exhausting. No wonder your daughter turned out to be the kind of child who tells ridiculous lies, like my father is a gang member. Oh, so you really think Rachel made that up? Of course. Maybe it's time you acknowledged your own failings and apologized. Say it loud. I'm a burden on society. A disgrace who couldn't even raise his kid properly. I'm sorry for causing everyone so much trouble. He slammed his hand on the table. The teacup tipped over, spilling its contents. That was the end of his tirade, it seemed. And after hearing him out, I couldn't understand any of it. Maybe if I were one of those elites, I could make sense of his attitude. Why did this young teacher, still early in his career, think he could throw his weight around in a place like a school? Does having a Tokyo University degree really hold that much value among civilians? Even if it does, it doesn't justify hurting Rachel. Not ever. I'm not accepting that. There's no way I'm letting a guy like this be responsible for my daughter Rachel. Just as I was about to unleash my anger, the door to the reception room swung open without so much as a knock. Excuse me. Forgive the interruption, but I couldn't help overhearing your conversation. Miss Thompson, what are you doing? That's completely inappropriate. I do apologize, but there's something that must be corrected in what I just heard. Corrected? Yes. Mr. Anderson, you said there was no grading mistake, but that's not true. What are you talking about? Please take a look at this. Miss Thompson quickly cleared the table and laid out a test paper and a thick book. The title read Introduction to Physics for Elementary Students. She pointed to a specific part of the book and explained, "This is the science test where a grading mistake was suspected." Now, while the textbook explains one method for solving the problem, Rachel used a different approach, but she arrived at the same answer. This book, written by a prominent physicist and graduate of Tokyo University, outlines that exact method. I believe Rachel, being an avid reader and a bright student, must have come across it in her studies. That's absurd. Mr. Anderson stared at the test paper and the book, comparing them intently. While he was distracted, Miss Thompson turned to me and bowed deeply. Gregory, I must apologize. I was unable to correct Mr. Anderson's conduct. He is, in fact, the son of the school's board chairman. While there hasn't been direct pressure from the chairman himself, it's difficult for us to openly go against Mr. Anderson. Ah, I see. So that's what's been going on. So Mr. Anderson hadn't been acting out just because he went to Tokyo University, but because he was also the chairman's son, having both academic prestige and parental influence. Yeah, that could make someone feel untouchable. And if no one around him could challenge him, it would only get worse. Honestly, I almost felt sorry for the guy. But Miss Thompson, why are you speaking up now? When Rachel asked me about the test, I realized the mistake too. But at the time, I didn't say anything. I thought it would be easier if the student just let it go, because it was only a small score issue. But I've regretted it ever since, seeing how deeply it hurt her. I know it's not enough, but I'd like to formally apologize on behalf of the school. I'm truly sorry. She stood and bowed again, even deeper than before. I sighed quietly. Miss Thompson, please, you don't need to bow to me. Your apology won't change anything. The one who needs to apologize and reflect is sitting right there, isn't he? Ugh, I'll admit, there might be room for discussion regarding the test. But in any case, what's done is done. As long as we work on preventing a repeat, that's enough. If you're satisfied, then please leave. Not yet. How do you plan to take responsibility for calling Rachel a liar? She hasn't been able to attend school because of you. And she never lied. Not even once. Calling her dad a gang member is just some low-grade scare tactic. That kind of thing doesn't fly anymore. So, if I prove I'm actually a gang member, then she's not a liar in your book, right? If you'd like, I can show you my tattoos or even our family crest. Better yet, why don't I invite you to my office? You'll be greeted by a few of my men. They've got a tough look, but they're decent guys. What nonsense is this? Mr. Anderson panicked. I leaned in, serious as ever. I was ready to do whatever it took to prove Rachel wasn't lying. Just then, there was a knock at the door. I exchanged a glance with Miss Thompson. She straightened her posture and softly called, "Yes." But before she got a reply, the door opened. The moment the person entered, Miss Thompson gasped. The chairman, Mr. Anderson. What? Huh. Both teachers looked stunned. I just blinked, unsure how to react. The chairman was the highest authority in the school. He was even above the vice principal or the principal. It should be someone from the founding family, a major sponsor, or a figure of immense influence, something like that. But what on earth was someone like that doing here? While we stood frozen, Mr. Anderson pushed his son aside and took a seat directly across from me. Good afternoon. I'm Kenneth, the chairman of this elementary school. Ah, nice to meet you. I'm Gregory, father of Rachel from class 31. I know it's been a while, Gregory. My brow furrowed without thinking. Been a while? What does that mean? I'm pretty sure I've never met a heavy-set, middle-aged guy like this before. He introduced himself as Kenneth. Do I know anyone by that name? Kenneth? As I was deep in thought, Mr. Anderson let out a snort and laughed through his nose. Huh, of course you don't remember. Who remembers the face of a middle school classmate anyway? Middle school classmate? Yes, we were in class 35 at a middle school. Our homeroom teacher was Mr. Morris, though you skipped school for about half the year. Didn't even show up in the group photo. Ah, now that you mention it, I did go to that school, that class. I do remember that teacher's name. And yeah, I skipped a lot. Finally, starting to remember, I added, I can't recall the names or faces of classmates, but I guess it's true we were in the same class. What, Dad? You and Gregory were classmates? Mr. Anderson looked more shocked than anyone. Even Ms. Thompson stood blinking beside him. Honestly, I wasn't sure what to make of it myself. Mr. Anderson, who claimed to be my former classmate, shot a sharp glance at his son sitting beside him and then turned back to face me. I've been briefed on the situation. It seems my foolish son has called one of his own students a liar. He even encouraged the class to mock her. I truly apologize. With that, Mr. Anderson bowed his head. He placed one hand firmly on Eric's head, who was sitting next to him, and forced him to bow as well. But Eric wasn't done, and he tried to fight back. Wait, hold on, Dad. Mr. Anderson, you believe him over me? He's a gang member, for crying out loud. He is. Yes, Gregory is a legitimate gang member, a senior member of a large organization that oversees this entire region. In fact, he even has his own group now. What? Oh, you know quite a bit about me. Am I that famous? I chuckled. Huh, you really don't remember anything, do you? Don't you remember getting into a fight to help me when some thugs picked on me back in middle school? Did I? I fought so many back then I can't remember which was which. But yeah, now that I think about it, beating up those punks was what got me started on this path. I kept getting targeted by delinquents after that and beat every one of them. Eventually, I got recruited. Maybe you were there that day, huh? That was you. Eric asked. More or less, I replied. But I guess you've completely forgotten about me. Even at the mini-class reunions, people talk about you. They say he's a gang member who never harms civilians. Back then, I skipped school whenever I felt like it and never turned down a fight. School was boring, and I had nothing better to do. I didn't know how to deal with the strength I had. Whether they were students or adults, I fought everyone. Eventually, a real gang member took notice, Mr. Keller, the boss, who said, I'll teach you how to use that strength, and brought me into his organization. Under him, I learned about honor, respect, and restraint. Never show off your strength. Never harm civilians. Never make your parents cry. Those teachings still live in me. By the time I finished middle school, I'd stopped picking fights unnecessarily. I'd learned better ways to protect the things I cared about. I didn't go to high school. Instead, I stayed by Mr. Keller's side, and here I am today. Well, whether you remember or not, Gregory isn't the kind of man who lies or accuses others without reason. He may be rough around the edges, but he stands up for those in need. At the very least, he'd never use his background or title to belittle someone else. Listening to all this, Eric looked frustrated. Here was my old classmate, now the chairman of a major school dedicated to raising the next generation. And me? I'm still the same no-good guy I've always been. Still, if nothing else, I want to be the kind of man my wife and Rachel can be proud of. I looked once more at Eric. So there's no more reason to call Rachel a liar, is there? Yes, I can personally vouch that he's a gang member. Of course, neither I nor this school have any connection to organized crime. I haven't seen Gregory in decades, so do you have something to say? I'm truly sorry. That doesn't sound like enough. Rachel was not lying, and the issue with the test, it was a grading error on my part. I deeply apologize. Let me also offer my apologies, Gregory. I'm truly sorry your precious daughter had to go through this. We are terribly sorry. The three of them bowed in unison. This time, I wanted to believe it came from genuine remorse. Please raise your heads. I don't need any more apologies. I wasn't the one who got hurt here. Yes, Eric, go to the classroom immediately and apologize to Rachel in front of the students and parents. Ms. Thompson, can I ask you to supervise? Of course, she replied. Thank you. And another thing, the plan to have you succeed me as the next chairman? That's off the table. I can't entrust the future to someone who would willingly harm students. We'll appoint someone more suitable. What? Please wait, Mr. Anderson. That has nothing to do with. You think this is a separate matter? Good grief. When did you become such a twisted person? As a father, I'm ashamed. Kenneth, if you'd like, I can take him off your hands. Straightening out punks like him is one of my specialties. What? You mean at your gang office? No way, I laughed. I'd love to take you up on that, but just don't make it obvious. If people start suspecting a connection between a school and a gang organization, it could seriously damage our reputation. These days, even a rumor is enough to destroy us. I get it. Don't worry. Not every job in the organization is about sitting behind a desk. I've got plenty of ways to keep it low-key. You'll see. Is that so? In that case, I'll trust you. If he becomes a decent human being, he can come back. All right. Once you've got your mind and body ready, get in touch. Don't even think about running away, Eric. Please no. After that, Eric was practically dragged out by Ms. Thompson. It probably wouldn't be long before the school cut ties with him too. I handed my office contact info to the chairman, Mr. Anderson, and took my leave. It wouldn't be good for someone with his public standing to have ties to a gang member like me. Just in case, I gave him my number but didn't take his in return. As I stepped out of the school building, a few of my men rushed over. They were out of breath, holding full trash bags and wearing towels around their necks. Gregory, welcome back. Thank you for your hard work. Idiot. I wasn't locked up. Everything's done here. How about your side? Yes, sir, we showed the civilians a thing or two. While I'd been inside handling things, I had my men assigned to tasks around the school. Their wording was rough, but they had done solid work. Even if Rachel's name had been cleared, being the daughter of a gang member carried a heavy stigma. It was unrealistic to expect people not to be afraid of gangs in general, but maybe, just maybe, if they could see we weren't all bad, Rachel wouldn't have to carry that burden. That's why I'd ordered my men to help clean up and beautify the school. They were involved in tasks like landscaping the yard, pulling weeds from the flower beds, fixing up the playground, and picking up litter around the area. All 50 of them had been given clear roles and worked in harmony to serve the community. If people could recognize our faces and associate us with kindness instead of fear, maybe Rachel wouldn't be made to feel ashamed. If it's to protect Rachel's smile, I'll do anything. All right, everyone, we're heading back to the office. Pick up trash along the way. Hand me gloves and a bag too. Yes, sir. I didn't make it to the parent observation day itself, but I'd say we accomplished a lot that evening. Rachel came home around sunset, apparently having walked back, chatting happily with her friends after we left. Eric went to class 31 and offered a public explanation and apology. Under Miss Thompson's watch, he bowed deeply and acknowledged both the grading error and his poor behavior. Rachel told me herself, and the kids who used to tease her apologized too. They said, "We're sorry for being so mean." Did you forgive them? Yeah, I told them, just promise you'll never do it to me or anyone else again. We can't be causing trouble for civilians after all. Stop using weird words like that, though. I guess it's kind of my fault. But I see you were able to make up with everyone. Think you'll be okay going to school from now on? Yep, I'm excited to play with everyone. Seeing her smile warmed my heart. But now that the whole incident had been explained and Rachel's innocence confirmed, it meant something else too. It meant the students and their parents knew her father really was a gang member. I could imagine how shaken the parents must have been. I just hoped it wouldn't cause Rachel to be pushed away again. Oh, and guess what? Everyone said they want to meet you and your men. Huh? What? Well, your men were cleaning up the school, right? And you were picking up trash too. We saw it from the classroom during recess. Everyone said they've got scary faces, but they seem like good people. I was so happy to hear that. I see. Yeah, so next time we have a school event, come to, okay? I want to show everyone that my dad's a gang member, but he's not scary and he's awesome. All right, I promise. Looks like our cleanup effort worked better than I'd hoped. It wouldn't mean much if we just did it once, though. Maybe we should make it a regular thing. A non-scary gang member. It sounded kind of ridiculous, but the idea that we might actually be accepted by the community made me feel a little happy. Someday, if something really serious happens, I hope the people around here won't hesitate to come to us for help. All right, time for dinner. What's the side dish? My special Hamburg steak came out pretty good today. It's not as fancy as the one from the kids' meal at a restaurant you had when we went out the other day, but still, I like eating out, but I love your cooking more. Thanks, that means a lot. We set the food on the table, and Rachel and I smiled at each other and said, "Let's eat." That night's Hamburg steak was the best I'd ever made. Eric, who had been Rachel's homeroom teacher, was forced to resign the day after the parent observation day. Just as promised, we took him into our organization. We also run a company as a legitimate front. Eric now works for that company and gets sent all over the country. In modern Japan, there are many vital industries like fishing, farming, forestry, and construction that desperately lack young workers. Our company sends manpower to those places, offering support through dispatch services. It's usually a last resort for folks drowning in debt, but I didn't tell Eric that and just tossed him in. Today he went to the sea. Tomorrow, he will go to the mountains. Eric now struggles in places where resumes and degrees mean nothing. Please let me take a break. I can't feel my arms anymore. You just took a break. If you don't hurry, the sun's going to set. Come on, get up, get up. I can't take this anymore. Class 31, now without Eric, has Miss Thompson as the acting homeroom teacher. She has plenty of experience and is well liked by the students. Rachel has taken quite a liking to her too. Since that whole incident, I've made it a point to be more present in Rachel's life, making up for lost time. We've been spending a lot more of it together, and from now on, I'll keep doing my best to protect Rachel's smile, always.